Who would I be today if I wasn't dependent on beliefs? All beliefs are limiting beliefs. I have a belief that relationships aren't safe, or that I'm not meant for success, or that I'm not empowered to get what I want. Those are thought patterns of defensiveness and survivorship. We need to get in touch with another way to guide our lives. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Art of Awakening. I'm your host, Dr. Sue Morter, and today we're going to explore the subconscious mind and how becoming aware of our tendency to default into patterns of thought, which are called beliefs, and transcending them and their limitations can transform your life. So we're here to engage in another adventure of exploring the depths of who we are and what is underneath these layers of function that we have a tendency to default to. So it's a question. What does it mean to truly create the life that you were meant for? What does that mean? To be able to create that, and what does meant for even mean? Think about that. And have you ever considered the origin of your limitations? These beliefs that people carry around and how that focuses the mind, and where do those things come from? How did we even get in this shape that we're in? Also, how can we identify and change these patterns to align with our true potential? So these are great questions. And it is wonderful when we start to evaluate that something is running our lives and it's not our consciousness. And it is what's happening at a subconscious level that is actually truly expressing itself outwardly into the world. It is what is happening at a subconscious level that seeks to become conscious, that keeps pushing us in directions. And so the directions that it pushes us in that we do not like are actually revealing to us the aspects of our system that we haven't turned on yet. We haven't turned it on, and we're not able to function from a place of wholeness because those circuits aren't firing. So what happens when we are, landing in this life and we splat and we basically disperse our energies, our mind and our body and our breath go in different directions. And what happens as a byproduct of that is we become dependent on the mind alone to navigate, to get us into safety, to figure out what we need to do next in order to be okay. And what happens is the mind starts operating in certain patterns. And those patterns of thought that it generates, how do I get safe? What do I need to do? How do I fit in? Or how do I belong? Or how do I navigate this? Those patterns of thoughts that work for us in the immediate moment become our regular reference points. We think the same thought again the next day. We operate in the same way the next day and the next day. And what happens is we generate a reality based upon those few things that we've concluded. And I can tell you that we've actually prematurely concluded the things that we've concluded in life. We've made conclusions based on a limited amount of information, and a byproduct of that is the things that we've concluded aren't as comprehensive and true as they can be. And so we live a limited life based upon how we're processing the energy and how we're engaging in life in this way. And so we want to become aware of that whole system and how it operates and how we can shift it so that we can broaden the perspective that we are living in and broaden the experiences of our life in terms of abundance and healing and awakening to a bigger version of who we are and what we're certainly capable of. So a lot of people talk about limiting beliefs, and my limiting beliefs are in my way, and that's what I have to get rid of, and that's what I have to change in order to expand myself. And I want you to know that even if you create better beliefs than your limiting beliefs, you're still living by your beliefs, even if they're more positive beliefs or less limiting beliefs. And I want us to get this point across here, right? All beliefs are limiting beliefs, all of them. You can't have an unlimiting belief, because the moment you have a belief, you have something that you have to defend. And the moment you start defending, you're not open to infinite possibilities. You're not open to actually seeing what's here. You're going to be focused on life through a lens that is tainted. It's distorted in some way. Now, granted, a less distorted lens is better than a totally distorted lens. And that's where we're headed today, is to talk about how do we keep refining and refining and refining the lens through which we are looking so that we can allow the infinite to come through us beyond our beliefs, beyond the idea of even needing beliefs. And we've created a species that out of ourselves that is belief dependent. We are dependent upon our beliefs to get us through. And it's a limitation at large of who we are and what is possible and what is trying to happen through our lives. When we lay down the need and the dependency on beliefs and become available and aware and present, what happens is we shape shift what the mind is capable of doing. We start using the mind for what it was built to be used for. And what happens as a byproduct of that is we start creating beyond beliefs. We start creating beyond previous conceptions and premature conclusions that we have drawn. And we will often say, it blew my mind. Well, hallelujah, because it blows your mind when it cracks through every belief, a limiting, a non-limiting, a less limiting belief structure. So pose another question here. Who would I be today if I wasn't dependent on beliefs to keep me going or to guide me? How could I be guided if not by my beliefs? And the answer is embodiment. The answer is dropping into a core version of who we are and allowing something to steward the energies that move through our bodies without having to filter it through, no, that's not right, or no, that can't happen, or I've never seen that, so I just can't believe it's possible. What ends up happening is we need to get in touch with another way to guide our lives. And that is certainly something that we are interested in doing inside of the Art of Awakening. What we are awakening to is an individual that operates beyond beliefs altogether. So in order to kind of address this, let's step back and talk about how beliefs are formed in the first place. And it makes perfect sense that we live from this place of needing these beliefs in order to feel okay or certain or grounded and to have some sort of consistency of flow in our lives. What's actually trying to happen is energy is trying to pour in through your body, even before your body exists. Energy, which is you, which is the unified field of consciousness, starts compressing itself into a funnel, into a channel, and descending by compressing and compressing itself all the way to the physical dimension, to the physical world, to life on earth. Creating a body, birthing yourself into this reality, into this realm. And in that process of compressing and compressing the energies as they descend and descend into this dimension, we hit the earth and we start to rise up. And we rise up in this toric field energetic flow. And in that rising, there is a constancy that is capable of rising and rising and rising. And it then starts to flow out in a fountaining sort of way based upon how much momentum it has. And when that momentum is lost, the energy fountains around and then it gets taken up again and it recycles and recycles and recycles. And if we are allowing that to happen, we have a flow that is consistent in our lives. And if we experience something that buckles us over or overwhelms us or splats us in some way, what happens is we start shutting down in various areas of our system. Our aspects of our own consciousness start to shut down in terms of my clarity of who I am and what I'm all about. Areas of my ability to communicate and to connect in relationship might get affected and shut down if we are hurt or disappointed or disillusioned in some way. At some other point along the way, if we're really trying to step into our power and we get shut down, certain aspects of our consciousness collapse upon themselves, and they're now no longer contributing to the ever uplifting rising and ascension of our own experience of self. And so we have these areas in our body that are shutting down because there are areas of your body that are related to each level of consciousness that you are. All of the parts of you, all of the parts of your wholeness are represented in your physical body. And so areas of energy centers shut down or become distorted. And in that distortion, what happens is we start to create a wobbling rise of this energy that is supposed to be rising with smooth clarity and generating this toric field energy flow that gives us a sense of self and a sense of certainty. And when that energy starts to wobble, we start to jump into our heads to try to figure out, what's this wobble? I feel uncomfortable. I need to figure out what's wrong, as a survival instinct. And so we turn to our head, our mind, to figure out what to do in this situation. And that is the moment where we start developing a belief, a thought of survivorship, an idea of something to hold on to so that I can feel stable. So we develop a belief system. I have this belief and this belief and this belief. I have a belief that relationships aren't safe, or that I'm not meant for success, or that I'm not empowered to get what I want, or someone's always going to be in my way to allow me to achieve what I'm truly destined. Those are thought patterns of defensiveness and survivorship. And so when we establish those thoughts with enough potency, they start to ingrain and imprint, and they become repetitive in how the energy has to divert and go around these areas in our body that have been shut down in these life experiences that we've been having. It's all happening subconsciously, but a byproduct of that is we are left with an inability to actually be present with what is happening, because we're depending on our go-to. Here's my go-to, here's my go-to, here's my go-to. And it's worked for me in moments of duress before, so I'm going to use it again and use it again. All of this is happening at a subconscious level, and it becomes what we call our limiting beliefs. And they are creating a limitation because they are creating a wobble in the rising energy through our system. When that wobble is happening, it creates a distortion in the energy field that we're creating in this toric field pattern that is what's true about the bioenergetics of your body, how the energy flows through your body. It's what I'm describing to you. And it starts to take on a wobble, which creates a distortion. And now I look out through this distorted energy field and I see a world that reflects back to me my limiting beliefs. I attract people and circumstances and situations. I engage on the level of beliefs. And as a byproduct of that, I'm in no man's land. I'm doomed. I'm going to have a frustrating experience. I'm going to flail about in that because I'm not allowing the true self to come through. And so by holding on to those beliefs or those thought patterns, what we do is we're ensuring that we will maintain a distortion in our own energy field. And we will attract a distortion in someone else's energy field that we will bump up against. And that's what creates the friction in our lives, all in an attempt to solve the issue of the wobble and the distortion, all in an attempt to heal on a subconscious level. So we'd like that subconscious healing to become conscious so that we can transcend the level of beliefs altogether, not just transcend our limiting beliefs, but transcend the need for the stability that some sort of belief gives us. I know that if we could let go of our attachment to the mind and drop into the deep core center of our being, we would have the sense of safety and sense of stability and sense of self that we depend on our beliefs to give us. The problem with depending on beliefs to give us that stability is that the vast majority have been developed based on our survivorship. And even as we are walking forward and trying to transform them and shift them, if we're still insisting on being identified as the mind cannot heal itself rapidly enough for you to experience the benefits of that in your life that you would really love to be feeling. It won't happen. It won't happen fast enough. And so what we're interested in doing in the art of awakening is dropping into a deeper version of ourselves that is not based in the mind, that is not dependent on the mind's thinking patterns in order to have a sense of safety. The mind is being overused in ways it wasn't meant to be used for. things that it was not developed to be doing, we're forcing it to do. We're forcing the mind to make decisions and the mind to decide who we are and how we should be present in the world. When in reality, we're supposed to be using our mind, not allowing the mind to use us. The mind has taken over and has taken charge. And it's time to not only stabilize the mind, but release our identity from it so that we can feel who we really are. The soulful self has a mind. The mind doesn't have a soulful self. The soulful self possesses the mind. It is in charge. It has generated and created a mind and a body to navigate itself here in this life. And so when we say that all beliefs are limiting, it is an attempt for you to begin to understand that you are more than your mind altogether. It's a different game that we're supposed to be playing. And so how can we begin this process of unattaching from the mind? The first thing we have to do is realize and recognize the effects of these limitations that we've put in place as we were busy being identified as the mind to begin with. We start to notice our habits and our patterns, and we start to see that there are ways of being that are repetitious, and I can notice them inside of myself. I can hear my own mind doing its thing. And when I start to observe my mind and its regular antics, I start to recognize, oh, that's who's in charge of me. That's who's creating my life. And they don't get to. They don't get to be in charge. I get to be in charge. So I first have to train my mind. By bringing the mind's attention onto the body, we're going to get there a whole lot faster. If we start noticing how it feels in your body when you're thinking some of the thoughts that you're thinking, you'll start to realize, oh, I'm selecting the wrong person to be in charge here. I've given too much power to someone who thinks they have ownership and that they are the be all end all to my life experience. And it's not the case. It's not mature enough. It hasn't had enough experience. It's not integrated. And I'm talking about my own mind. So I have to pull back my power from my mind and put my mind in its proper place. The mind is supposed to be serving me, not dictating me. And as long as I'm identified as the mind, I become obsessed with my limiting beliefs that I try to fix. But it's the dog chasing its own tail. And it will happen for the rest of your life unless you start to recognize there's another version of you altogether that needs to lay down the mind's rule, that to lay down giving all of our power to our mind and assuming that it's going to make the right decisions. When the mind learns to serve the soul, when we start to sit as the soul and we train the mind to serve us instead of us being at the effects of it, everything changes. The mind is designed to be in service to the soulful self. And when the mind is in service, it's not thinking and it's not believing. It's not being those repetitive habits and patterns. It's not allowing that to be the driving force in our life, no matter how unlimiting those beliefs are. The mind is supposed to kick it into neutral and pay attention to what's going on inside. Because every moment that we're being dictated by our beliefs, we're not tending to what's going on in the deep core center of your being. Because that deep core center of you is always evolving. And you can't update your beliefs fast enough to keep up with it if you're living from the seat of the believing machine. We have to drop in to another version of you. And I know that it takes time to wrap your mind around this and how does it work and how do I get there? That's why we're here. That's what we're doing. But we do start noticing these sensations in the body. It will start to allow you to do two things. You'll start to recognize, oh, I have been identified as the mind and it's thinking negative thoughts and I've got a lump in my throat or a knot in my stomach because of it. There's one. And then number two, the other thing it's going to do is start to build a better relationship between the mind and the body. Because when the mind and the body start working together, they're more. The body is illuminated and magnified by its revealing of the language of the soul. And when the mind is on it, it does that magnifying. The right use of the mind is to magnify things. Whatever we focus the magnifying glass on, that's what gets enhanced. And if we're focusing our mind on going after our limiting beliefs and trying to change them, we're still at the end of the day sitting in the seat of the mind. And so we have to sit in the seat of the true essential soulful self. And when we do, we start to recognize that the mind is getting to change its role. It has to change its whole job description. It has to be in service to something greater than itself, not just decide to improve itself and create a better personality, but to pause for a moment and realize there's a whole game changer here. I could drop in and be the soulful self that has a mind. And when the mind is in its proper service to the soul, it automatically thinks more positively. It thinks in terms of infinite quantum reality. It thinks in terms of creatorship, not survivorship, because it finally feels like it found its true purpose. It finally feels like it's aligned with something greater than itself. And that's what it wants to do. Instead of it being in service to its own beliefs, let it be in service to the real you, the soulful self. And the way that we do that, step one, is the second part of what we were talking about. When the mind and the body start connecting more often, more regularly, it builds a nest. It builds a vibrational vessel, truly, this body that we can begin to feel inside and sense our truth and what is inherently meant to be revealing in our lives. We can come upon a flow that allows us to choose in alignment with our true integrity, with our true soulful presence. Our purpose for coming on the planet is not to develop a better collection of beliefs. Our purpose for coming onto the planet is to heal the system and allow it to function here as it does in higher and higher realms. And so it's all about honoring that soulful presence that is a stream of consciousness that is coming through the body. And when we do, the patterns that we begin to notice change the decisions and the behaviors that have been holding us back. We start to sense and feel differently. We feel differently in our body. Our body relaxes. Our body becomes free and capable and interested in presenting the true essence and the soulful self. So consider the resistance as an impasse in your life. These issues that come up with contractions in your body and ways of thinking that cause you to depend upon your beliefs and immediately in a knee-jerk reaction start to get into your defensive, protective personality. Now consider that friction moment as an impasse that is inviting you to let go of the whole thing, to drop inside instead of trying to just refine the mind from the level of the mind. Even Einstein tells us you can't do that. Einstein tells us that we cannot solve a problem on the level of consciousness that we created it. And so we have to bring the mind onto the body because it changes the level of consciousness of the mind. It stabilizes it. It brings it into alpha frequency where it's capable of translating infinite amounts of information that are bombarding you every millisecond from the cosmos and that you're supposed to be interpreting as the ideas and thoughts that you are to be living your life by, not individualized beliefs that keep you separate from that constant flow that's barreling in. So, how do you currently handle the resistance in your life? Do you procrastinate? Do you move into doubt? Do you move into fear? Do you move into angsty dispositions and grudges and attitudes? What do you do? It's important that you get to know that. It's a sign telling you you're too attached to the mind overall. It's time for you to release your stronghold to the mind and start paying attention to something deeper than your mind. It's the soulful essence that's running through the core of your body. So every moment that you bring your attention into, how am I breathing in my body? How am I breathing in the belly? How relaxed am I in my solar plexus? How full is my heart right now? You're starting to animate the very aspect of what we're speaking about here. And so this perspective shift aids in every challenge of your life. It will allow you to actually be able to tap into what I really want to say is this. What I really want to do is this. And what happens in this moment is we move into what I call the quantum flip. In the quantum flip, we're moving from living as a believing machine to moving into one who is training their mind to sense what the soulful self really wants to say right now. what the soulful self really wants to be doing right now, what the true essence of the cosmos would have happen if I were to surrender and allow it to pour through me right now. If I were to allow the divine to have its way, the universe to have its way with my life, which would be much more abundant than anything a limiting belief is ever going to be able to create. If I were to allow that to happen, how would my life change? The quantum flip is allowing us to recognize that we can move into being in the flow, being in this. And by doing so, it is truly contributing to our own evolution. That's why we come. We come not to refine our minds and to live as our mind, but to refine our mind enough to recognize it's supposed to be in service to the soul. That's what we're here to do. And it is a quantum flip. We're changing roles. We're changing the seat that we're sitting in. We're getting up out of the seat of the personality overall and sitting down in the seat of the soul and understanding that role of you in consciousness and co-creating your life is essential to transform what you're capable of experiencing. And so small shifts are going to allow you to change and to align how you use your mind. The body is always revealing what the soulful self is saying. It's vibrational, it's energetic. And so the soulful self is demonstrating that there are areas that have been shut down and there are ripples of discomfort and discord inside of me. The body is trying to share that with the mind. The mind turns outwardly and tries to figure out who's causing me to feel this way, when in reality, there's no problem with you feeling this way. It's trying to share with you and show you you've been externalizing your power. You've been living from the form of your beliefs and from the level of your mind for far too long. So it's time to drop in. Our job is to train the mind to listen deeply within and allow this to be a transformative moment in your life, moment by moment, day by day. So when we allow ourselves to recognize these moments, it begins to change our life opportunities in huge form. And so we become available. We become present instead of defending our beliefs. We become capable of being present to possibility. And what happens in those moments is a beautiful, soulful essence can rise. When we're constantly thinking and defending and calling upon our knee-jerk reaction of our believing machine, what happens is we squelch the rising of the soulful self. We suppress it once again. And so if we're wanting to be more free, it's time to start breathing instead of thinking. It's time to start becoming present and observing what's here, trusting that your breath is going to give rise to a greater wisdom than your beliefs that were prematurely concluded and set in place could ever offer you. It's right here for you to have, and it's simply a matter of you dropping in. So breathe deeper in your belly today and drop open in the solar plexus and allow your heart to be full, because there is energy pouring into this vessel that is you, that is trying to guide your life experience and allow you to transcend the level of living from beliefs at large, rather to be present in a loving way and to be able to be compassionate and transcendent of the life circumstances and to lead your life and others in it in the ways that give us the opportunity to experience ourselves as creator. So we'll begin exploring life from this perspective by checking in. Every time we have a knee-jerk defensive reaction, guarantee you've been seated as the believer. I'd rather you be a knower and be a finder instead of constantly beating your head up against the wall in the ways. This is what we're here to transcend. We are evolving from a species that is dependent upon the mind to one that is living from the heart and from the soulful self when they are combined. So consider how this might shift your own life in the days and weeks to come, and know that you're onto it. You're on to the greatest mystery ever hidden, and we're here to unveil it again in the art of awakening. So to all of our listeners and all of our participants, thank you so much for joining us on this journey. I so look forward to where we go next. Bye-bye for now.